What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch big news roundup today. Blizzcon event information has been revealed, as well as a PTR patch went onto the server last night. But first and foremost, an update on the Overwatch 2 leaks. If you remember from the previous video about Overwatch 2, I looked back to tweets and claims that Metro made for last year's BlizzCon, anticipating that Ashe would be announced, even the addition of Bob and some of her abilities, adding credibility to a host of new leaks from Metro for this year for Overwatch 2. Well, Metro has tweeted some more, as well as said a few things in passing on his stream, which raised some major questions. First up, the tweets. He says here, I will double down on this. The game will be called Overwatch 2, and it will not be an expansion to Overwatch. This is quite confusing, but it isn't if you understand the direction the sequel is going, and Metro elaborates on this. On his stream, he described two ways that he could foresee the dual game issue playing out, and this first one is the more likely of the two, where Overwatch 1 continues to have everything you expect it to have. The biggest shock will be no new hero at BlizzCon. Instead, we're getting the announcement of the new game, and the new hero will be pushed back till after BlizzCon, but the hardcore competitive player base will still remain in Overwatch 1. What the new game will be is have a PvE game mode, a new style of PvP, not like what we're used to, but maybe more Left 4 Dead multiplayer, where you can play as the zombies or maybe Omnics in this case, and the sequel game will only have a select number of heroes, but the gameplay will be completely different. This seems to make quite a bit of sense, considering all the statements Blizzard has said to either shareholders or press outlets when they talk about launching new games within their IP. JLN Brack has said this multiple times over the past year, so I think it's probably better for us to not think of Overwatch 2 as a sequel necessarily directly to the gameplay we know, but instead like a spin-off. I think it's more likely that the game will have a subtitle like Overwatch Revenge of the Omnics or something, where we finally get a story campaign, new game modes, and just new different stuff to do, and the base Overwatch game is the multiplayer game we're all used to, completely separate. Now, the second version, Metro sees this possibly playing out, unlikely, but what he prefers, and I think perhaps many of you might as well, I don't know where I said on this yet, but he details a version of events where the first game just dies, like Call of Duty style. Maybe they still keep the servers up and stuff, but they move on completely to Overwatch 2 with all of the new stuff, but also transferring over a select subset of heroes, most of them, but starting from scratch, essentially, where you'll probably get most of the heroes again, and maybe they copy and paste a good chunk of the maps, and you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's crazy. Why would I want to do that? One of the benefits of the way we have things now is that they keep updating the game without needing a yearly launch cycle like Call of Duty. Well, the reason why Metro is in favor of this is because they could do a balanced rehaul and sort of fundamentally change the basis of the gameplay. But I think this one's pretty radical as well. And the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And also, I think I prefer the first option because really, they can put whatever restrictions onto the game they want. They just choose not to do so, right? I can make an entirely separate video about the fixes and new formats, what we should do with heroes and balance for Overwatch 1, but we'll just keep moving on and talk about that at another time. It still can be redeemed. They can make whatever changes they want. They don't necessarily need an entirely new product to fix the current game we have today. Now, a few more tweets I wanted to go through. If you didn't know, there was a Diablo 4 leak from Germany, which Metro had already said as well, adding credibility that he does know things, which already was pretty self-evident anyway, based on his previous success with leaking these things. Getting into specifics about Overwatch 2 now, he gets asked a question if the timeline and the story happens chronologically before the first game or later. Metro explains that, as he said in a previous leaked tweet, the cinematic that should be launching the new Overwatch game features a young Genji, as in before he gets turned into the Cyber Ninja, and he's just the normal ninja. He takes this to imply that, yes, it will be finally kicking off the story right where it hasn't kicked off at all from the beginning way back when. But hey, at least it's something, right? Now, in the mix of all of this, you might be asking to yourself, well, what happens with all of my cosmetics? Some people have paid a lot of money in microtransactions to stock up on loot boxes, even if it was years ago. What happens to your cosmetic items? Even if Overwatch 2 is a completely separate PvE game with different game modes, if they use some of the same characters, you'd like to see your skins transfer over, right? Now, it's this area that Metro is very hesitant to say explicitly what they're going to do, because the things he's heard sound so bad and are going to make people upset that he thought there was a chance that they would change it before BlizzCon. Here's what he says in this tweet. Currently, there are no plans to be able to transfer items or progress from Overwatch 1 to 2. But please don't take this as a fact. I think if Blizzard changes one thing, it should be this. Again, this is current plans and hopefully not set in stone. He goes on to explain it in these Twitch clips as well.
From what I heard, and that's not a 100% confirmed source, from what I heard, they're definitely going to change the in-game purchase system. I don't know everything, but I thought I'd share what I know. What I heard is neither bad nor good. I think it's more on the bad side, and it's gonna make a lot of people upset, and it has to do with skins. But I'm not gonna leak it, because even if I was 100% certain about the info, Blizzard could still change their mind, right? It's 2 weeks. But I don't take my word for this one, because I feel like that's such a hot topic that Blizzard can still change their mind any day.
Now in this, we find out some things that could be good news, but also could be bad news, depending on who you are. There's been a lot of discussion about loot boxes as a cultural and economic item over the past 3 years of Overwatch existing, and with it being on such shaky ground where at any point it seems like a country could just ban them entirely, you would think Blizzard would prioritize finding ways of monetization in-game that isn't going to be made illegal in the near future. Also, with a new game, you would think they would like for you to buy a bunch of in-game items again, but I think we would all be really upset if they had a lot of the same cosmetics, but they didn't transfer over. However, again, I think part of this is because we're all going to be biased in assuming everything functions like it does in the current Overwatch game. In Overwatch 2, Revenge of the Omnics or whatever it's called, the way everything's distributed could be entirely different. We don't even know the size of the hero cast or how they interact, so perhaps there's an entirely separate set of cosmetics anyway. And if that's the case, that might feel a bit sour because there's probably your favorite one on one game or the other, and if they don't transfer over, that's annoying, but probably an easier pill to swallow, especially if the cosmetics feel like they make more sense in the context of that given game. So for example, we have highlight intros in Overwatch 1, but perhaps there isn't even a play of the game in Overwatch 2, right? Or whatever you can think, use your imagination, right? Because remember, if we add on other things that Metro has leaked that we discussed in previous videos, there's going to be an upgrade system, because when you have a PvE style game mode, it's much easier to have RPG mechanics. He explained Tracer's pulse bomb when sticking to one enemy will affect like it's sticking to all of them in a nearby area. This would be completely broken for the PvP game modes we have now. It would have killed Goats Comp at least. Maybe make things more easily balanced if there was more complexity in the text trees of how your characters worked, but we're going to be playing in an entirely new style of game that we're not used to, and is probably more similar to games Blizzard has made in the past, because a lot of those systems, RPG progressions and the complexity, that's what Blizzard was traditionally known for, and based on everything that's been leaked thus far, I'm starting to think that's the direction the game will go. And with that, the distribution model of how you earn cosmetics is probably an entirely different system, whether it be a battle pass or you just directly buy the things you want. Those are more likely to be on the table, and I don't think there will be massive outcry on this unless you have to buy the same skin twice. Blizzard, please don't mess this up. But that's it for the Overwatch 2 leaks. Can you believe it? Just over a week away, we'll be hearing the announcement for the new game at BlizzCon, and now we'll move on to talking about BlizzCon news. FYI, the Genji and Symmetra skins look really legit, actually, and they're now available if you're interested in purchasing the BlizzCon virtual ticket, which allows you to gain access to everything that gets done at BlizzCon, even things that aren't on the main stream. And what are they bringing to the table this year? Well, here's the overhead map, and we expect some huge announcements. As Metro even said, Diablo 4 is the next big game release, which everybody thinks will be in the Mythic Hall D. But Overwatch specific, one interesting thing that they changed this year is that they're going to be sharing the arena for both StarCraft and Overwatch. Even though I'm an Overwatch fan, I think we gotta respect how good of an esport StarCraft is. You might even say it's a much better one, especially in the current form. And if you're wondering where the World Cup games go then, well, on the 31st, which is sort of the meetup day before BlizzCon even starts, they'll be broadcasting the preliminaries all day. Then on day 1, they'll put them on the small stage, and on day 2, they'll be on the arena for the playoffs, with StarCraft getting the arena in day 1. Otherwise, looking at the schedule, and we filter for Overwatch, there's not much, actually. There's a panel talking about the art on day 1, and on day 2, There's panels talking about the Overwatch League, another on artists, but importantly, a 45-minute one on the Mythic stage talking about an Overwatch update, which I assume is to talk about the primary game, whereas I assumed the rest of the conversation was going to be about the sequel, which we can expect to come out on the opening ceremony on day 1, November 1st, which starts at 1 Central Time or 11 a.m. PST. That's where we should get the announcement of the Overwatch sequel, and of course, with us at BlizzCon, we will be trying to attend these different panels, as well as get interviews with whoever we can, in order to find more information about where both games are going, actually, as I'm sure we all have a lot of questions. Last note on BlizzCon, Eddie and myself will be attending, and depending on how our flights and the travel and everything works, we will be there in the afternoon or evening of October 31st, Halloween, where the BlizzCon big meetup is happening, and we hope to meet many of you and other creators as well. That's what I'm most excited for, because really, once everything kicks off in the morning, there's too much content to record and film and places to run that we never really get a chance to meet any of you. Whereas this year, with the meetup a day prior, there's a whole day set up just for that. So look to our Twitter to see updates of where we are and where we'll be, so you can come say hi. We love seeing fans at BlizzCon. It's great. Now, the last thing for today was a PTR update that went up last night, which I think is safe to say is a BlizzCon precursor patch. There isn't a lot in the patch, but like they've done in years past, there may be something hidden that they're internally testing or testing the stability to on a sort of subset of the patch, and whatever new content that comes to the game, if anything, really, who knows this year, is sort of being hidden from this patch, but going to be coming when this patch comes to live. Because the main things that were on here were many bug fixes that just sort of cleaned up a lot of the visual and weird interactions. Nothing too important here, other than perhaps some annoying things that have popped up. The biggest fix is to some of the ground targeting abilities, like May's Ice Wall, Sigma's Gravitic Flux, and I assume they mean Batiste's Amplification Matrix, not his Immortality Field, because that doesn't target on the ground. And I hope they added Reaper's Shadow Step to this list as well, where the targeting selection will now more heavily prefer edges over placing as far away as possible. They recently did some tweaks to this that made those targeting abilities work kind of funky when you're trying to look up at an edge. They were attempting to improve it and kind of broke it in the other direction. So this is them trying to tweak it a bit more. A bunch of buffs to the workshop. I think it's about time that they start adding workshop modes to the main arcade playlists a bit more frequently than they have done, I think. But the last update is probably the most important in the whole patch, and it allows for a new gameplay option called High Precision Mouse Input. And it says enabling this option will allow Overwatch to use your mouse's native polling rate when determining exactly where to shoot. Note, there may be a slight performance cost to enabling this option, so we'll have to see how this pans out, but the way I understand it is that the fancy gaming mice that a lot of us have can really crank up their DPI, but your system or the game filters that DPI in sort of much smaller increments anyway. So if you have 800 DPI, I believe it just translates into 400 or in some other multiple. I'm not an expert on this. And theoretically, what this option should do is improve the reliability of your mouse input. But it works pretty fine for me if you put a high enough DPI already. So I'm not really sure what improvement this is going to make, but time will tell. There has been problems with having a DPI setting that Overwatch hasn't mixed with too well. And there used to be a lot of talk about pixel skipping, and I assume this is trying to fix that. But I'm sure many of you who are much more tech savvy than I am can explain this in the comment section down below. If you do so, I'll heart up your comment so others can see. But that's it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. We're just about a week away from everything kicking off. We talked about a lot of stuff in today's video, so let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are you excited or more worried for an Overwatch sequel? Do you think it's going to be a success? And any other thoughts you have on the new game, let us know in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon so that you actually get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, dank memes, and also BlizzCon meetups. Hit us up on there. Our DMs are open. Slide in them. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.